Here is a question I want you to sit with for a second. Why is that two organizations can be handed the exact same problem, the same budget, the same smart people, the same plan on paper, and one of them transforms while the other one just stalls? It's almost never about the plan. It's about how they learn, how they talk to each other, and what they actually believe is possible. And that right there is what this whole video is about. So, welcome in. In this video, we're gonna walk through something called action research and what I like to call the architecture of change, the hidden structure underneath every team that actually manages to get better over time. We've got 12 big ideas to cover, and I've laid them out for you right here. We'll start with the systems view, the idea that organizations are living things, then we'll get into how real change actually happens step by step. We'll talk about three different depths of learning. We'll look at why starting from what's broken beats starting from what is broken. And toward the end, we'll get into most human part of all of this, the unwritten agreements, the trust and what to do when people disagree. You do not need a business degree to follow this. I'm gonna keep it plain, I'm gonna keep it real, and I promise by the end, you'll see your own team or your own family, honestly, a little differently. So let's get into it. Various systems theory, the holistic lens. Okay, first big idea, and it's the foundation for everything else. Most of us were taught to look at an organization like a machine, right? You've got parts, departments, roles, job titles, and if something breaks, you find the broken part and you swap it out. Simple. But organizations don't actually behave like machines. They behave like living systems, like a body or an ecosystem. Take a look at this. Every living system takes in inputs. That's your people, your fundings, your information, your energy. It runs those through some kind of internal process. The work, the decisions, the culture, and it produces outputs, results, services, impact. But here's the part everybody forgets. See that loop curving back around? That's feedback. The outputs don't just leave the building, they come back and reshape the inputs. What you produce changes what you get next. And the whole team sits inside an environment, the world outside the walls, funders, communities, regulations, competitors, the economy, a closed system ignores all that and slowly dies. An open system stays in conversation with its environment and it adapts. So, why does this matter to you? Because the moment you start seeing your team as a living system, you stop blaming individual broken parts. You start asking a much better question. What in the system is producing this behavior? And that question changes everything. First, action research, inquiry in motion. So, if an organization is a living system, how do you actually help it change? This is where action research comes in. And don't let the word research scare you off. It is not lab coats and clipboards. It's honestly one of the most natural things humans do. Action research is just this. You learn by doing, and you do it together. Watch the cycle. You plan, you look at a real problem and you decide on a small, smart move. Then you act. You actually try it. You don't just talk about it in a meeting. You do it. Then you observe. You pay close attention to what actually happened, not what you hoped would happen. And then you reflect. You sit with the team and ask, okay, what did that teach us? And then you go around again, smarter this time, plan, act, observe, reflect, loop after loop. Now, here's what makes this special, and it is the part one I know. The people inside the problem aren't just test subjects, they are core researchers, the volunteers, the staff, the folks doing the actual work. They help design the experiment and they help make sense of the results. Because think about it, who understands a problem better than the people living it every single day? Nobody. Action research just gives them a structure, way to turn that knowledge into real change. Let's see learning loops. How deep do you go? Now I want to show you something that honestly changed how I think about mistakes. Not all learning is the same. There are actually three depths of it. Look at these three steps climbing upward. The first one is single loop learning. This is the everyday kind. Something goes wrong, so you fix it. The room's too cold, you turn up the heat. A process fails, you tweak the process. You are correcting the error. That's useful. But notice, you never question the rule behind it. The second is double loop learning. Now you go deeper. Instead of just fixing the error, you stop and ask, wait, is the rule itself wrong? Are we even solving the right problem? This is where the room gets quiet because you are questioning assumptions people have taken for granted for years. And then there's the deep one, triple loop learning. This is where you ask the biggest question of all. Who are we becoming? Our values, our identity, the way we see ourselves, is that still right? Most teams live their entire livestock in single loop. Fix, 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 fix. Forever, busy, never transforming. The teams that actually grow, they have learned how to climb to that second and third loop and ask the uncomfortable questions. Here is appreciative inquiry built on what works. All right, let's flip something on its head. When you wanna improve something, what's your instinct? For most of us, it's to hunt for what's broken. Find the problem, find the weakness, find the failure, and attack it. We're basically trained to be problem detectives. But there's another way. It's called appreciative inquiry. The whole idea is this. Instead of starting with what is wrong with us, you start with what is working and how we get more of that. And it runs in four beautiful stages. Watch the cycle. Discover. First, you find the bright spots. When have we been at our absolute best? Dream. Then you imagine. What if that best become the norm? What would could we become? Design. Now you build it. You create the structures and habits to make the dream real and deliver. You put it into motion and you sustain it. That is why this isn't just feel good fluff. When you spend all day starting at what is broken, people get defensive. They shut down. But when you start with what is strong, with people's pride, their wins, their energy, they lean in. They want to build. You get the same goal, a better organization, but one path drains people and the other one fuels them. Here's action research meets appreciative inquiry. So, now you have met two powerful ideas, action research and appreciative inquiry. And you might be wondering, do I have to pick one? Nope. And this is where it gets good because they fit together like puzzle pieces. On one side, action research gives you the engine. It's that discipline cycle. Plan, act, observe, reflect. That keeps you moving and keeps you honest. It is the how. It is the structure. On the other side, appreciative inquiry gives you the spirit. It points all that energy toward strength and possibility instead of blame and fear. It is the heart, it is the direction. Put them together and you get something genuinely powerful, a team that's constantly experimenting and learning. That is the action research, while staying hopeful, energized, and focused on its best self. That is the appreciative inquiry. Structure plus spirit, the engine and the fuel. One without the other sputters. Together, that's how real, lasting change actually gets. Let's see process consultation. The self as instrument. Now, let's talk about the person helping all this happen. Maybe a consultant, maybe a leader, maybe you. There's an old model where the expert writes in, diagnoses your problem, hands you the answer, and rides off into the sunset. The hero with the solution. The trouble is, when they leave, the capability leaves with them. You are right back where you started, just poorer. So there's a better approach, and it's called process consultation. The idea is that the helper's job isn't to hand you fish, it's to help you learn to fish. They focus less on solving the problem for you and more on building your ability to solve it yourselves. And look at what holds that up. It rests on four things: self awareness, knowing your own blind spots, authenticity, being real instead of performing the role of expert, moral courage, the guts to name the hard truth in the room that everyone's avoiding, and a genuine helping relationship built on trust, not authority. Notice what is not on that list. There's no clever framework, no fancy software. The most important tool the helper has is themselves. How they show up, how they listen, whether people actually trust them. That's what we mean by the self as instrument. You are the tool. And like any instrument, you've got to keep yourself to. Now, time for the formative dialogue, which brings us to maybe the most underrated skill in all of this, talking, or really the right kind of talking. We call it transformative dialogue. And it is not the same as debate. In a debate, I'm waiting for you to stop talking so I can win. I already know I'm right. In dialogue, something different happens. I'm actually willing to be changed by what you say. Think of it like this, like dropping a stone in still water. One honest conversation creates a ripple. That ripple touches someone and they carry it into the next conversation and it spreads. That's how culture actually shifts in an organization. Not through memos and mission statements, but through 1,000 small, honest exchanges that ripple outward. And here's the beautiful part. This is the heart of everything we just talked about. Appreciative inquiry only works if people can speak honestly about their best selves. Action research only works if the team can reflect together without fear. It all runs on dialogue. So, if you take one practical thing from this video, make it this. The next time you are in a hard conversation, go in genuinely willing to be changed. Watch what happens. Let's see the psychological contract. Okay, now we got my favorite idea in this entire video. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. When you join an organization, you sign a contract, right? Salary, hours, job title, the official stuff. But there's a second contract you sign, and nobody ever writes it down. Nobody even says it out loud. It's called the psychological contract. Picture an iceberg. Above the waterline, that little tip, that's the formal contract, the paperwork, the stuff you could take to court. But below the surface, that huge hidden mess holding everything up. That's the psychological contract. All the unspoken expectations as the volunteer who believes if I give my weekends to this cause, I'll be respected and my voice will matter. As the new hire who assumes if I work hard here, I'll be developed and looked after. None of that is in the paperwork, but it is absolute real and people feel it in their bones. And here's the kicker. It's built on perception. It's what each person believes was promised, which means two people can walk away from the same handshake with two completely different ideas of the deal. This invisible underwater agreement, it's running your organization right now. The only question is whether you are paying attention to it, when it matters, and when to revisit. So let's talk about why this invisible contract matters so much and what happens when it breaks. Look at what happens to people's energy when the psychological contract is intact. When people feel the unspoken deal is being honored, engagement is high, they give you their discretionary effort. That's the extra, the going above and beyond that no job description can ever force out of someone. But when it gets strained, that effort starts to drop. And when it's outright breached, when someone feels genuinely let down, it falls off a cliff. And this is the part leaders miss. Even your best intentions can feel like a broken promise to someone whose expectations were different from yours. And in a volunteer driven world, especially where people aren't saying for the paycheck, the moment that goodwill is gone, they're gone. So when do you check in on this contract? And the answer is not once a year at the review. There is no fixed schedule. It's a living thing. You revisit it at the start of every new cycle. You revisit it when someone's role changes, and you especially revisit it when something unexpected hits a crisis, a big shift, a surprise. Think of it like a relationship. You don't define the whole thing at once and then go silent for a year. You keep checking in because the expectations keep evolving, whether you talk about them or not. Keeping it explicit and handling conflict. All right. So, how do you take something invisible and make it visible before it breaks? Let's get practical. Step one, have the expectations conversation out loud on purpose early. Ask people directly, what are you hoping to get out of this? What does success look like for you? Then agree on how you will communicate, how often, through what channel. Write down a simple summary so nobody's memory has to do the heavy lifting. Check in every cycle. And when expectations change, because they will, renegotiate openly instead of letting resentment quietly build. You are basically dragging that underwater iceberg up to the surface where everyone can actually see it. And the second piece, conflict. Because here's the truth, when you got passionate people working on something they care about, disagreement is guaranteed. And that's not a bad sign, it's a sign people care. So you manage it. You listen actively, really hear the person. Don't just reload your argument. You de-escalate before things boil over. You get comfortable with role ambiguity. Those messy, wait, whose job is these moments, and you learn to negotiate scope and time like a grown up, calmly, fairly, out in the open. Conflict isn't the enemy here, avoiding it is. Handle it well. A good disagreement is one of the healthiest thing that can happen to a team. Let's synthesis, putting it all together. Okay, step back with me for a second. Look how far we've come. We started by seeing the organization as a living system. Then we found the engine of change, action research, that plan, act, observe, reflect cycle. We learned there are depths to learning, single, double, and triple look. We discovered the power of building on strengths through appreciative inquiry. We met the helper whose greatest tool is themselves. We saw that it all runs on honest dialogue. And we uncovered that invisible underwater agreement, the psychological contract that quietly holds the whole thing together. And here's the thing I really want you to walk away with. None of these are separate tricks. They all fit into one center. They are all really about the same truth. Lasting change isn't something you install. It's not a program you roll out or a system you bolt on. It's something you grow through trust, through honest conversation, and through a genuine willingness to keep learning together again and again. That's the architecture of change. And the wild part is you can start building it tomorrow in any team you are part of. So that is the whole picture. 12 ideas, one big truth. If your head is speeding a little, that's completely okay. You don't have to do all of it at once. Pick one. Maybe this week you just go into a tough conversation, actually willing to be changed. Or maybe you ask your team that one question. What does success look like for you? Small loops, that's how it starts. Now, I genuinely love to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell me which of these 12 hit on the hardest and which one are you going to try first. I read them and I learn from you too. That's kind of the whole point, right? If this gave you a new way to look at your team, do me a favor and hit that like button. It really does help more people find it and subscribe because we go deep on this kind of thing all the time. Thanks so much for spending this time with me. Now go build something that lasts. I'll see you in the next video.